Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO heavyweight world champion. It is, of course, Mr. Joseph Parker. Joseph, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you. As always, thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure, Joe. So we last spoke back in January. At that time, you were getting ready to fight Jack Massey. You've been busy. Just briefly on that fight, I was quite shocked by that performance, Joe. Massey was obviously a cruiserweight coming up. He'd never boxed at heavy. I still don't understand, but how did he manage to go the distance? Did you underestimate him? What happened?
Nah, listen, it's obviously he stepped up to the challenge, and there are a few things like I don't think people really understand where you have a camp and you're still trying to find out what works for you, if you know what I mean. And at that stage of my career, everything hadn't clicked. But then from after that performance and things, and then I started searching and looking for what I needed, and I made a few changes. And from then on, I felt like I finally found the right, person involved in camp and found the right balance. And I think everything is upwards from then.
Yeah, it's important to mention, obviously, that was early days there with Andy Lee. We're honest every time we speak, and I was a little bit puzzled. I thought you'd have just steamrolled Massey, but, credit to him.
Listen, I'm not sure when you guys, so being in the ring, and you have 5 gears, but you're stuck on 2.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
No excuses, though. Like Jack Massey did come in and win the distance. But when you sort of fighting and you have 5 gears, but you're stuck on 2, whether it's overtraining, not enough rest, or whatever it is. But there was something that affected my body and how I felt to go into the fight. But you don't make any excuses. And when you sign up to a fight, you gotta, no matter what's happening, you have to, put up with it and give it your best shot.
But since then, you've been excellent. A trip to Australia quickly to knock out Faiga Opelu. I think Opelu obviously isn't on your level, but still to stop him in 1 round is highly impressive. And then the other week in Saudi Arabia, that win against Simon Kean, for me, is the best you've looked in a long time, Joe. Talk me through it.
Well, since that Massey fight in the beginning of the year, I made some positive and good changes in my team and career, which I felt like has made a big difference going into these recent fights. I still got Andy Lee as the head coach, looking after the boxing side of things, but I've got George Lockhart in camp, who I give a lot of credit to for the work that we've done outside of camp and not to do with boxing, strength and conditioning, nutrition. And I felt like having a better balance on all these things have made me a better fighter. Not overtraining, not doing too much, and not leaving it all in the gym. And instead, we're actually monitoring it and making sure that everything's on point leading into a fight, which I feel like that's the biggest difference now leading into future fights.
And Joe, obviously I don't want you to take that the wrong way when I say it's the best you've looked in a long time. I felt you were excellent against Joe Joyce despite losing. I think you were excellent in the Chisora rematch. But both of them fights, particularly the Joyce one, they were wars, fights that you had to bite down on the gum shield for. But the other week in Saudi, you looked the sharpest you've looked for a long time. I think that's probably the better word. Is that fair? I think sometimes
That's a lot fair. That's fair. Like everything, not only in the boxing, like everything, my family life is perfect. Now I have a great team where I feel like everything is clicking and gelling a lot better than it did in the past. And I just feel a lot more, I feel alive and I feel like I rekindled what I was missing in boxing and in my passion for boxing. I feel like it's come back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think sometimes you've gone out there and you've beaten many fighters, but without necessarily looking as sharp as you did the other week. Whereas this time you were clinical, you controlled every second, and you found your feet again. Rather than just kind of plodding forward, you were moving excellently. You were brilliant the other week.
Well, thank you. Listen, Simon Kean did take the fight, and it was a good challenge. I know he hadn't had the same level of opposition, but it was his chance to try and make a statement and make a name for himself. But, I did train very hard for this fight. I was in camp with Tyson for 12 weeks, and we had George Lockhart doing our nutrition. I had George doing my strength on this team. Tyson had his own team doing the boxing Sugar Hill and did his own strength work. So we did train very hard for that fight. I think on fight night, I felt great, and I felt like everything clicked. And when everything is clicking and you're a happy fighter, everything just flows a lot better.
And as you know, heavyweight Michael Hunter's a good friend of mine, and trust me, he doesn't give out compliments very easily, but he did text me after your fight, and he said, "Did you just see Joseph Parker?" I said, "Yeah." And he said he looked really good. And trust me, that means a hell of a lot coming from him. He doesn't like to give anyone compliments. So yeah, great performance, like I say. You've ended up having...
Michael Hunter is a hell of a fighter, right? And I've always wanted to share the ring with Michael because I rate him very highly, and I rate him at the top. And I know he's avoided it at the minute, and I think we were texting back and forth to try to make a fight happen. The only issue is that we haven't had a promoter who's able to put it on. But I think that in future, if we can get together and do something, it'd be awesome to share the ring with Michael Hunter. I have a lot of respect for him and what he's done in boxing, and the way that he's going about, trying to make a fight for himself, trying to get anyone into the ring.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of respect, between you both, of course. You've ended up having 3 fights this year. Most heavyweights would be delighted with that. If I'm not mistaken, though, you'd like a 4th before the year's out, Joe.
Yeah, I'm looking at fighting in December. We're working on it at the moment, and if everything comes off as planned, I'm in New Zealand at the moment, but I should be heading out very soon back to camp and back to preparing for the next fight if we can lock in December.
And are there any realistic opponents being discussed at the moment?
We're looking at anyone. I think anyone in the top 10. There's Zhang's name was thrown about. Herkovich. There's a lot of names out there, and it's just about finding who's available and who's keen to make it happen.
And you mentioned Zhang there, Joe. I was at the the Zhang and Joyce rematch, and obviously it was terrible for Joe. It's so mad because before they ever fought each other, I felt that Zhang was tailor-made for Joe. I thought that was the worst style possible for Zhang. The relentlessness, the toughness of Joe. I thought he'd just outdog him, but obviously he couldn't do it through 2 fights. What's your reaction to that saga? Because it shocked me. I don't know if it shocked you.
Yeah, it did shock me. I knew Zhang had the power. I just didn't think he was able to deal with Joe Joyce's pressure. And the first fight stopped was because of the lumped eye, and in the second fight, he came in heavier, and we're just not sure. I think Zhang had came in with a lot more confidence from the first fight, and when someone wins a fight and have a rematch, I'm not sure going into the rematch straight away is. And a lot of cases, the fighter who won the first fight always wins the second fight. There are some cases where it's the other way around. So I'm just not sure. It was a bit of a shock to everyone. He was in the position to fight for what he was close to fighting for a world title, and he took the fight with Zhang, and twice Zhang got the better of him. So I think Joe's a hell of a fighter. Hopefully he can, relax and chill and recover and come back stronger, come back better. At the age that he is, I'm not sure how long he has left, but he says that he's got a lot to give, still got a lot to give the boxing world.
Yeah, we hope so. And I was going to say, obviously you want to be back out in about 4 weeks' time. It's not a lot of notice. There's obviously going to be a lot of guys that would be, I guess, hesitant to take a fight off that, short of a notice. But when I asked you what kind of level that you're looking at getting in with, you said top 10. So, yeah, should we expect a top 10 guy then in about 4 weeks' time for you, Joe?
Yeah. Well, listen, 4, 5, whatever it is, I think it's time to fight someone in the top 10. I know I've always wanted to fight someone in the top 10, but it's just about getting the fights locked in and making sure that the promoters are happy and managers happy. Everyone, there's a lot of things that have to be in place in order to make these fights happen. So if I can make it happen to finish the year off with a bang, that'll be awesome.
And I wanted to ask Joe, promotionally, what's going on with you right now? Am I right in saying you're no longer with Boxer?
No longer with Boxer, but we are. We're in talks with them. They, if they can line up a big fight, we're in talks with all the promoters. And with the last fight, we did some work with Queensbury Promotions running the event. I think with the next one, we might be doing some work. We're just going to figure out who's got the best fight to us or the best fighter for us to fight.
And, of course, we have to mention it, Fury and Ngannou. You're Tyson's really, really close friend. I'm Tyson's biggest fan, and I'm so biased that it's untrue. But for me, his performance was very shocking. It wasn't up to standards. I thought he'd play with Ngannou. What did you make of it, and have you spoke much to Tyson since the fight to know what he's thinking or how he's feeling?
Yeah, I'm not. Listen, I was in camp with Tyson for 12 weeks, and there's, no matter what you do in camp, whether you train as hard as you can, you do everything right. But when it comes to fight night and it doesn't go the way you think, everyone thinks that you've mucked around in camp. He had the best of sparring. He had Martin Bacoli, he had Solomon Dacus, he had myself, he had a few other sparring partners. So he gave it everything he had, or he gave it everything he could. But just the performance on the night wasn't. We all know that wasn't close to what Tyson can do. And so he didn't take Ngannou lightly. He trained so hard for it, but just the way he fought was a bit surprising to everyone.
And just coming down to my final couple of questions, what do you think Tyson should do next, Joe?
I think Tyson should fight Usyk. I think that fight should go ahead, and whoever just shows whoever the best is at this time. I think they should be fighting each other next.
And what are you up to at the moment? Obviously, you mentioned you're back in New Zealand. Honestly, you've been travelling here, there and everywhere. But what's happening over there at the moment?
Just spending time with family, enjoying every day. Just doing the school drop-off, school pickup, appointments here and there, a bit of training. Just living the normal, happy life. And just spending some quality time with my wife and kids. And, because, when fights are locked in, you're away for camp and you're away for the fights, and you get limited time when you're back home. So just making the most of it.
Yeah, and you're a long way away from home when you're deep in camp, like you say. Just before we wrap it up, Joe, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, as always, it's always a pleasure having you on. You're very much loved on this show.
Listen, it's great to be on. And to all the listeners, just thank you guys for the support of the show, the support of the fighters, support of boxing. And there are some massive fights out there to be made. I'm still involved in the mix. And, I want to give it everything I have. I know what I can do, and I just want to show you guys when it's time to do it.
There we go. If the other week was a showing of what's to come in the future, I think we're all super excited. Joe, it's a pleasure, as always, speaking with you. Thank you for your time. Congrats again on that blistering performance, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks, Joey. Thank you very much.